A boy named Dennis was sitting at the table over his covered notebooks, thinking about something. "You like to stand up for people, don't you?" asked some guy, stepping on the boy's handwritten manuscripts. "I'll tell you the truth, I'm the one who put all this on your table. And since you love to stand up for people so much, let's see if someone will stand up for you." The guy continued to talk to him brazenly and greyhound. There were several other friends and assistants with him. Dennis cast a sidelong glance at them full of contempt. He remembered what happened recently. "All of you, stop it!" he exclaimed, turning to the guys who were beating one frail boy. "Because I stopped the bullying of that boy, they decided to take it out on me?" he asked. "He's so worthless that he can't even utter a word himself," they said. They simply provoked the boy, constantly mocking him. "I'm asking you, he's pretending to be an idiot!" The men continued to cling to Dennis. One of them reached out and grabbed him by the chest. "Fuck you!" the boy said back to him, and a strong fist flew straight into his face. This guy had no problems with clarity. The guy screamed as Dennis hit him in the jaw. Bloody teeth flew out of his mouth, and menacing, vile moans all around. "I don't like people who threaten me!" the boy exclaimed, showing them again his clenched fist, ready to attack. He was not going to let himself be offended, and defended his life with all his might. But then he also received an answer. That impudent man hit the boy in the slip with his fist, scratching his cheek a little. "How dare you hit me?" he growled angrily, with a lisp and 2 front teeth missing. "Beat him up." He gave the command to his sneaks. "I heard that before high school, this Dennis was the best student in the middle class. Why did he get into fights so often?" "He's funny," said one of the students watching what was happening. "Guys, that's enough! Let Dennis go!" exclaimed the girl, apparently his classmate. She came running quickly, trying to protect the guy with at least a word. "Let me go, Fabian!" she screamed. The guy grabbed her hand, stopping her. It was one of Dennis's impudent classmates. "He's not good enough for you." "Don't interfere in his affairs." He turned to the girl again. He tried his best to prevent her from leaving. "It's none of your business. He doesn't deserve it." "Let me go," she said, turning around, as the persistent guy again grabbed her hand. "What's good about this, Dennis?" "I'll make sure that from tomorrow he doesn't come to school anymore," the guy hissed through his teeth. "Stop it!" "All of you, I will immediately inform your parents," the school director exclaimed as he flew into the room. He was very indignant at such ugly behavior of the students. "Maybe he'll stop causing me problems," the father asked the boy. He was modestly, but decently and cleanly dressed, and rode a bicycle to school. They started it themselves, and they also broke my watch. The boy began to explain to his father everything as it really happened. After all, the guys really bullied him. "It's okay. I'll buy you new ones." "Our business has finally begun to improve," his father answered. He always treated his son loyally, kindly, in an Ottoman way. What kind of chaos is going on here? He destroyed his father's store. Call the police. "If someone reports this to the police, their house will be destroyed," said the people who had gathered near their shop. "Dad, someone is causing destruction in our store," Dennis exclaimed. They stood with their mouths open, shocked by what was happening. "Stop it!" "What are you doing?" The boy ran up to the crowd of angry people and continued to investigate. He began to throw everyone around, waving his fists. Several guys fell to the floor. For his age, the boy was strong enough, but not strong enough to overcome several attackers. Then, someone grabbed the boy from behind. He held him tightly, blocking his arms. The guy couldn't even move. The guy's grip was so strong, and the second hit him in the stomach with all his might. He could neither escape nor defend himself. He beat him brutally with his feet. The boy was squirting blood from his mouth. Drops of sweat were running down his cheeks. Poor guy. 3 for 1. How unfair it is. The watch flew off Dennis's hand. The glass shattered into small fragments. His only good watch, a gift from his father. "Please, please don't touch him." "Don't touch my son. Beat me if you want." The father turned to them, hiding his son so that they wouldn't beat him anymore. The impudent man stood with a cigarette in his mouth and kept his hands in his pockets. 2 strong men stood next to him, Uncle, I won't hit you. You didn't pay for the roof and now you owe us. If we don't get the money tomorrow, he answered his father. We'll destroy everything here, the man exclaimed, and stepped on Dennis's watch, breaking it completely. He behaved meanly and impudently. This asshole! The boy groaned, leaning on his father's hand. He raised himself slightly on one elbow. Drops of sweat ran down his face. His father protected him with his body, not allowing him to be offended. A light bulb was burning in the room, and the boy was looking at it, lying on the bed, healing his wounds. He was angry at his helplessness. Why? Why are there so many bad people in this world? Why? The guy thought desperately. Why such injustice? His thoughts haunted him. Food prolongs our life? Don't worry. Tomorrow Dad will ask the neighbors to borrow money. It's good that things have been going well lately. I think we can pay them, he told his son, spoon-feeding him. Then the bowl of food flew upside down and turned over. The guy waved his hand with all his might. His nerves were on edge, and his resentment was tearing him apart. The fragments scattered across the floor, mixed with food. This is all because you are a weakling. Get out of here. Leave. Go away, Dennis shouted at his father, pointing to the exit. He now blamed not only himself, but also his father for this situation. The poor father, upset by his son's behavior, walked out the door with sadness in his eyes. He was also sad and unpleasant, because what could he do in such a situation? Those guys were much stronger. But why? Why? I don't have any power. I just want to protect my family, the boy wailed while sitting alone in the room. He grabbed his head with his hands. Lord, if you exist, please pay attention to us. Why do good people suffer? Those who get away with it are freaks. What are you doing? The guy continued talking to God. Violet lightning flashed in the sky. Bright, menacing, piercing through. It was as if God had answered his prayers. They hit Dennis directly. It glowed and sparkled with a bright purple light. The hair stood on end on his head, and his skeleton was visible, every bone of it. A lilac watch appeared in front of him, with a new convex dial. They swirled in the air, sparkling with bright blue flowers right above the boy. It was something unusual. The guy continued to lie there with his mouth open. Lightning flashed and pierced right through him. The bright light from the appeared clock continued to illuminate his body. Host scan. Scanning complete! I'm launching the clock memory implantation program. The system's voice was heard. It seems that I had a long dream where I had a divine clock, the boy remembered, having come to his senses. He woke up in the morning holding his head. Then he noticed some object on his hand. It was a new watch. Was the dream real? The boy thought, looking at his watch. What happened that night? Is it all true? His bewilderment knew no bounds. He had a lot of questions. Hello, Master. From now on, I will live with you. Although I am not waterproof, but I do not run out of charge, and I also have protection from perverts. I ask you to treat me well. Because I don't want to activate the self-healing function, the system spoke to him. You can speak? What kind of protection is there from perverts? The guy shouted in bewilderment. My name is SB0, but you can call me Clock. This is a map of your abilities, the system continued to explain. Intelligence, 6. Physical strength, 5. Spirit, 7. Luck, 3. Abilities, 0. Listed the list. What makes one value so weak? Here only unusual abilities show 0? Dennis asked the siren bug. I think the fact that the intellect, endurance, intelligence, and luck of the owner is superior to others is already known to you. But unusual abilities belong to that part of you that is beyond the average person. For example, you can be very good at martial arts and some people can do magic, the system continued to explain. Okay, I get it. To do this, you need to have some kind of superpower. And the owner is smart, then I'll be brief, answered the bug. And he began to explain further. I am here for the purpose of observing whether the beings who call themselves human beings can make rational or emotional investigations through their faculties, by which they must learn to reach the higher dimension from the lower, where the main character lives now. Therefore, I will give you a little help with your actions. This is first aid for you, or whatever you call it. A set for beginners, the system explained. What are you talking about? The boy seemed to not understand. Some kind of projection appeared in front of him. He opened his mouth in surprise. Is this projection real? Is modern technology capable of this? Dennis never ceased to be amazed. The projection glowed with blue rays, just like the system on his arm. What is this anyway? He thought, looking at his new watch. Yesterday, I was struck by lightning. Was it because of it? The boy tried to figure it out. He saw some kind of large glowing button. It was blue and burned brightly, and he reached out to her with his hand. What is this? Thought the guy pressing this button. He became more and more surprised by what was happening. The whole world was now turned upside down in his head. You will get +5 strength if you put the book to your chest, he read, opening the first page of the book. Strength +5? Ordinary people have 5 points of strength, so if I add 5 more points, I will be twice as strong as ordinary people, the boy thought. Place the book on your chest. Are you kidding me? Is there another way to activate this? Dennis continued to think. Uncle, have you already prepared the money? A voice was heard behind the door. I don't have that kind of money yet. Can I give half of it for starters? He continued listening. Those bastards, the boy exclaimed, and opened the window to look. He was seriously angry. They pestered his poor father again. Uncle, you don't want to pay, right? The man asked his father, brazenly grabbing him by the shoulder. They pushed him against the wall, threatening him again. They were very vile and arrogant. They simply mocked the man. I have no money, the father said in a hoarse voice. They had already beaten him up a bit. His face was bruised and blood was leaking from his mouth. My words upset my father. He's not a weakling. He's just worried about me, the boy realized, remembering how he ugly offended his father by being rude to him. The guy realized his mistake and his ignorance. Are you feeling good now? Do you want to fight with me? So come on! They threw the poor man to the ground and began to kick him. The poor man doubled over from the blows inflicted on his kidneys and stomach. He hit his head with his hands so the guys wouldn't break his nose or break his jaw. I can't sit back and do nothing, the boy thought as he opened his door. He plucked up courage and went forward. If he, being weak, protected even weaker ones, then how could he not help his own father in this situation? He clenched his fists, deciding to go to his father's aid. Maybe he'll be able to test his new strength. Maybe he won't be so weak anymore. Moreover, the notification bug has already transferred points of strength and spirit to him. It seems I'm crazy to believe in this, the boy immediately thought. But he didn't give up. Just as his father always defended him, without fear for his life, so he decided to go to his defense. But still he looked at the projection. A whole system was displayed on his face in bright colors. Blue, white lines flashed before his eyes. Are you going to pay or not? 3 strong men continued to torment the father. They were just making fun of him. Go to hell, the boy exclaimed, flying up to the men. He bared his teeth, being very angry at the offenders. After all, the boy always defended the weak, fighting for justice. And he rushed at them, clenching his strong fists. Bright light, smoke, clouds of dust all around, and human screams. He threw these complete scumbags onto the asphalt. But they didn't bother getting up again and going at the guy with their fists. I can't believe it, I've become even stronger. This booklet really works. The boy continued to be surprised. Do you want to die? The man shouted roughly. He clenched his fist tightly, preparing to hit the guy. But the boy was not a failure. He became more dexterous and agile. I'll kill you, Dennis exclaimed. He was very angry with the offenders. How long had they bullied him and his father? It was time to teach them a lesson, how to follow the mark. My hand. Let go! Let go! It's broken, the offender shouted. The man was already curled up in pain. The broken arm was sticking out in the other direction. It was a terrible sight, but these creatures deserved it. Next time you won't be able to do it with one hand, the boy answered him. Dennis, with a deft move, knocked the man to the ground. Let him say thank you that I didn't even break his legs, the guy thought. And last but not least you, the boy continued as he left for the afternoon. Before he could finish speaking, the man ran away from him with all his might. This kid is really crazy, he exclaimed as he ran away. Meanwhile, Dennis rushed after him like lightning. His eyes lit up. It was as if he didn't want to stop. He ran like the wind. And in an instant, he caught up with the enemy. He pushed him, and he fell back to the ground, with wild screams on his lips. If I see you on this street again, the boy began. After all, these bad, evil people did too much bad to him and his father. This will happen to you, he finished, and hit the concrete floor with all his might, so hard that a hole remained at the site of the impact. He broke a piece of asphalt with one powerful movement of his fist. Hurt! No, I have to endure it, the guy thought after the blow. He could barely restrain himself from screaming in pain. Note, Dennis's strength, his physical capabilities are twice that of a human. His punching power is 150 kilograms, like the strength of an ordinary boxer, and his bone strength is twice that of an average person. System scoring. Intelligence, 6. Physical strength, 10. Spirit, 7. Luck, 3. Abilities, 0. The second man, of the 3 offenders, recovered a little. He was sitting on the floor leaning against the wall. How dare you touch my brother, Die! He exclaimed, running up to the boy. He grabbed the knife and raised it over Dennis's back. These were not people, but insensitive creatures. They were ready to even kill for the sake of their priorities. Don't you dare hurt my son! The father shouted, running up to the man. He hit him in the face with a large iron-slotted spoon. A trace was left all over the scoundrel's face. Did you try to hit him on the sly? Get out of here! The son added, hitting him with all his might. He flew to the side, hitting the hard asphalt well. We are the 3 evils of the southern street. We swear that we will never again collect money for the roof from Thomas's family. The beaten opponents wailed, begging for mercy. Enough! Now get out of here, said Dennis, standing in front of them with his arms folded on his chest. He felt more confident than ever. Thank you, brother, for not killing us. Brothers, let's get out of here. Goodbye, Brother Thomas and Dennis. They said goodbye to father and son, and they ran as fast as they could, just so as not to get any more from the formidable boy, this child. How could he change so much overnight? Where does he get so much strength, especially if he... The father wondered. He could not understand how his son could gain such enormous strength so quickly. Let's take care of each other in the future. Your son is so wonderful. As they say, a distant relative is better than a close neighbor. The exclamations of people around were heard. When my family was bullied, none of you came to the rescue, Dennis said to the guys standing nearby. Dad, make me breakfast. It's time for me to go to school, he asked his father, taking his hand. He looked quite sad as his eyes were watering from pain. The boy sat down on the sofa and then, unable to bear it, shed a tear. His hand was swollen and red. She was burning with pain. Dennis only had time to blow on her in vain. Didn't you get hurt when you fought? Don't be so impulsive next time, my son. Let me apply the ointment. The father offered his help. Dad, from now on, no one will touch us. I will protect you, the boy said to his father, calming him down in response. He always sought to protect those who were weaker or who needed help. And even if it was very dangerous for his life, he would never leave his neighbor so that someone would mock him. Dad doesn't want you to protect him. He just wants everything to be okay with you, the man explained to him. After all, initially, as a father, he never gave offense to his child. And he tried with all his might to protect the boy from all sorts of troubles and dangers. Father! Dennis began to tell him. There was some annoyance and regret in his eyes. His eyes were watering, not from the pain in his hand, but from the awareness of his guilt before his father. Dad, I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't want to call you a weakling. He couldn't stand it and threw himself on his father's neck, hugging him with tears in his eyes. After all, he really offended his father, albeit reluctantly, in the heat of resentment and anger. Yes, everything is fine. When I was your age, I also snapped. This is fine. You may be late if you don't hurry up, his father answered, hugging him. In front of us is a huge school building. The boy was trying to get to class as quickly as possible. Oh, is the door closed? I'm late, he exclaimed, trying to open the door. It's strange, but I had to struggle a little until it worked. Something strange happened. Some kind of gray cloud above his head, some light rays. Something flew at him. Some strange liquid. Pieces of boards, fragments. What could it be? He stood in the middle of the class, not understanding anything. Apparently, one of his classmates decided to make fun of him. Who did this? The boy shouted. He was tired of the bullying of these unscrupulous guys. It was me. What? Did you want to hit me again? The guy from the class turned to him in an insolent manner. He was sitting on a chair with his feet on the desk. His sixes stood next to him. Jerry! Exclaimed the boy. He furrowed his eyebrows menacingly. How those arrogant bastards got him. There, outside the school gates, there are some offenders. Here there are others. And everyone is disgusting and embittered. How unfair everything is. It's time to end this lawlessness, the boy thought. Dennis, are you okay? Someone is just trying to make fun of you. I told you not to listen to them. I'll go call the teacher. Don't be afraid. The girl turned to the boy. It was his classmate, who, as always, stood up for him. Thank you, Megan. In the whole school, she's the only one I like, the guy thought looking at her. After all, the girl was full of sincerity and kindness, and also the most beautiful one in school. She was beautiful not only on the outside, but also on the inside. This is what Dennis liked about the girl. Miss Ling, this is Jerry and his friends. They are bullying their classmates. The girl pointed to the culprits of the quarrel. She, like Dennis, was a fighter for justice. The teacher and the girl stood in front of the class, trying to deal with their mean classmates. After all, they too will have control. Someone needs to put in their place the lousy, arrogant classmates who bully others. Jerry, what were you trying to do? The teacher approached the guy in a menacing tone. She was also tired of the eternal locking of this group of classmates. I wonder who did this. Trainee Miss Ling, are you responsible for me? He said in response. He also smiled disgustingly, as if he was allowed everything. Trainees are teachers too. Why are you making fun of your classmates? The teacher continued to ask him. She looked with her big eyes, which became even larger if you looked through her glasses. Miss Ling, I'm giving you one last chance. Don't interfere in my affairs. Just one word from my uncle and you won't be here, he threatened the girl, as if everyone should be afraid of his great uncle. His uncle is my supervisor, Sally. If I offend him, my career is over. But if I ignore these bullying, what kind of teacher am I then? Meanwhile, the girl was thinking what to do. What should I do now? The teacher kept asking questions. Beads of sweat appeared on her face. Still, she didn't want to end up on the street without work, but she also couldn't allow injustice. Miss Ling, I'm fine. Do not worry about it. Don't forget you will have your first lesson after the morning break. Dennis spoke to the teacher, calming her down. Meanwhile, these unscrupulous classmates were making faces behind his back, laughing and making obscene gestures, like a bunch of ridiculous, ill-mannered, brainless kids. Besides, it's better for students to solve their problems on their own, said Dennis, adjusting his new magic clock system. Where is my textbook? Dennis asked himself. They were already sitting at their desks, preparing for the lesson. His textbook suddenly disappeared somewhere. If you're looking for your book, it's in the toilet. He found a note at his desk. This was already the limit of their arrogance and stupidity. How much could one provoke the boy? Oh, I forgot to write, in the women's restroom, that impudent man shouted to him, pointing his finger towards the door from his desk. He looked like a lousy buffoon who doesn't study, but only makes faces like a clown in a circus. Jerry, said the boy, clenching his fist. That guy was looking for trouble. Dennis could barely restrain himself so as not to attack his classmate. After all, he now had much more strength, and with this, the desire to attack his opponents. Please, everyone, turn in your homework. I'll take it to the teacher. Megan addressed the class. After all, She was the head of the class. This is the interesting and respectful fate that the girl suffered. Some people can't even find their textbook. How will he pass his homework? His cocky classmate continued to laugh at Dennis. This was conveyed to you. Another student turned to the boy, and he gave Dennis a note. Homework, thought the boy. He took into his hands what was handed to him, and then he opened it to see what was inside. I'm useless. I can't help you deal with them. But one thing I can do is help you write your homework. I copied your handwriting. Don't worry. And by the way, thank you for helping me yesterday. He read what was written in the note. Thank you, Dennis said quietly to the boy who helped him write his homework. Apparently, he was very grateful to Dennis for standing up for him that time. And now the bell has rung, which indicated the end of the lesson. Change has finally come. Didn't you say that you want students to understand each other? Let's go. I'll help you find your book. The impudent man continued to bully him. Jerry, what are you doing? The classmate again stood up for Dennis, shielding him from the offender. Don't worry. He just wants to discuss something with me, he said to his classmate, taking her by the shoulder. I haven't figured out how to take revenge on him yet. I don't want to drag others into this. If I die, it's only me, the boy decided. He also didn't want Megan to be harmed by any of them. A classmate, seeing that Dennis had touched the girl's shoulder, broke the pencil he was holding in his hand out of anger. How dare you touch my Megan with your dirty paws? It seems he didn't understand the last lesson, he thought, getting angry. Meanwhile, the lesson ended, and everyone went outside while recess came, including Dennis. Dennis, how stubborn you are! I have to find a way to help him, the girl thought to herself. Megan, where are you going? A classmate asked her, jumping up. The guy blocked her way. He did not allow the girl to go outside. Fabian, let me pass, she asked him. But I have a question for you. Please, can you help me? He asked the girl, scratching his head. I don't want you to go to the teacher again for Dennis's sake. They have to beat him up, the guy exclaimed, grinning maliciously. He wished him harm with all his heart. In front of us are the toilet doors. Male and female, everything is as it should be. Come on in, your textbook is somewhere here, said Jerry, the bully guy. And he pointed with his hand somewhere on the floor to the side. Can you help me find him? Dennis asked in response. And he headed straight. With pleasure, the impudent man answered, grinning. Stay near the door and don't let anyone in, he commanded his little rats. They obediently obeyed the impudent man. They guarded the doors like Cerberus, or rather Jerry's little dogs. Well, where is my textbook? He asked the offender. And he stood behind him and laughed with his hands in his pockets. You can't take such an impudent look from him. Here he is, the guy exclaimed, creeping up from behind. He wanted to put a bucket on Dennis's head, but that was not the case. His evil plan came to an end. After all, the boy became much more agile and stronger. He even began to see and hear several times better. The boy's powerful fist flew straight at his nose. The guy flew a couple of meters and fell to the floor. He writhed in pain and screamed like a wounded dog. His head hit the floor of the dirty toilet. The boy gave him a hard time on his impudent face. It seems that those power points also increase the strength of bones, Dennis concluded, looking at his fist without a single abrasion. My nose! The guy screamed, sprawled on the floor. Drops of blood sprayed from his broken nose. Let's play dirty! Jerry immediately intervened, running up from behind, waving some kind of mop. He did not give up. There was simply no limit to his vile actions. If his fists were so weak, then he decided to hide behind a piece of wood. He swung and hit the boy on the head with all his might. The wooden mop broke in half and scattered to the sides. The boy's head turned out to be strong. After all, with the acquisition of certain skills, his bones really became stronger, and fortunately, his skull too. How are you? Dennis's boyfriend immediately asked. Apparently, he was afraid that he had broken his head. After all, the wooden handle was too thick. How could such a thick stick break on such a fragile person's head? Today I will take revenge on you for all the school students you bullied, the boy said, and drove his fist into Jerry's chest with all his might. His fist was powerful and fast, like lightning. My uncle is in charge here. If you beat me, I'll tell him everything, the guy wheezed. Dennis picked him up by the neck and pressed him against the wall. He didn't care who this vile guy's uncle was. The main thing is to avenge your neighbors and fight for justice. Then I'll kill you, the boy exclaimed and swung as hard as he could, clenching his strong fist. He looked quite intimidating. He was not like the Dennis he was before. His weakness and weak fist turned into power, strength, and courage. Now the boy was not afraid of even 5 attackers. This Dennis is crazy. He's really crazy, thought one of the little rats who was lying on the floor with a broken nose. He squealed in fear and crawled along the floor like a worm. You, second assistant Jerry began to say to Dennis. He looked very scared. Sweat was pouring down his cheeks. He was afraid that he too might get a couple of slaps from the angry boy. Get them out of there, the boy said, knitting his eyebrows together menacingly and seriously. Seeing his menacing appearance, anyone would obey, or would not bother with this guy anymore.
Deputy Jerry ran in the direction where the fight was, and he remained standing very surprised. He almost fell looking at the floor. He was even more frightened because his friends had suffered a lot. Lots of abrasions and blood spatters. Let them say thank you, Dennis thought. That I stopped in time. Otherwise, these guys would never have gotten back to their feet.
Bros! The guy exclaimed. They lay on the floor, twisted and beaten. It was Dennis who gave them a beating. He took revenge for all the insults caused over several years. Their faces were now swollen and even more against her than they had been before. Fabian, will you let me pass? Meanwhile, Megan still couldn't get out the door because of her persistent classmate. He had already annoyed her with his stupid jealousy. After all, he was just a classmate for her. I was daydreaming. I know what you were going to do. What good did you find in this piece of shit, Dennis? He asked the girl. Am I not better than him? I bet he's being beaten in the women's restroom right now, Fabian continued his remarks to the girl. His face was red with indignation. He was sure that the boy had been lying half dead for a long time, bleeding in his own blood. What? Dennis asked him unexpectedly. He came up from behind and touched him on the shoulder. He was very much alive, and quite vigorous for a dying man. Why are you better? Continue! The boy did not let up. He wanted to hear the truth from the guy who was cringing in front of the girl. Well, speak up. Why are you silent? The boy grinned at his impudent face. Dennis, are you okay? Megan asked. It was clear that she was very happy. Her emotions were very noticeable. After all, she was very worried about the boy, especially since he was threatened by 3 bastard classmates at once. I'm fine. Thank you for worrying about me, he answered the girl. And he smiled sweetly in response. Meanwhile, Fabian was seething with rage as he watched their conversation. Some kind of vile plan for reprisal against Dennis was probably already simmering in his head. I don't... Blushing with excitement and embarrassment, she began to make excuses. For some reason, the girl was very shy when talking to him. Lesson begins. Go back to your seats. Megan immediately got out of it. She was glad when the bell sounded, like a life-saving bell. And she hoped that the boy did not notice her embarrassment and ridiculous emotions. How did this brat come back unscathed? I don't think he could beat up Jerry and his cronies. And where, by the way, is the gang of 3 evils of the southern street that destroyed Dennis's store? I haven't heard anything from them lately, the guy thought. It was clear that he was slightly scared. He picked up his phone, which was lying on his desk. There was a message from the 3 evils South Street gang. Your Dennis is crazy. He almost killed us. Don't mess with him, brother. No matter how much you pay us, we will not be able to help you. Life is more important to us, he finished reading the message. What a bunch of cowards. Fabian got angry. He clutched the phone tightly, almost breaking it, from the anger that washed over him. Where did Jerry and his friends go? Why didn't they come to class? The guy was even more worried. He blushed and his face changed with horror. Meanwhile, the lesson began. All the students had already gathered in the classroom, sitting in their seats, except some. Teacher. Can we skip class today? Asked Jerry and his friends, barely able to stand on their feet. They stood in the doorway, not going any further, beaten and swollen. Abrasions shone on their faces and scarlet bumps like New Year's lanterns. Everyone in the audience turned their heads and looked in horror at the beaten guys. Their eyes became twice as big. After all, no one would have thought such a thing, that someone would dare to kick the asses of these arrogant guys. What's wrong with you guys? Who did you fight with? What happened? Miss Ling asked in horror. She covered her mouth with her hand in surprise, but subconsciously, she was clearly happy about it. After all, they've already had enough of everyone. These three, they bully everyone. Did someone repay them in kind? Said one of the students. Dennis is so cool. He avenged us. These three got what they deserved. The guy's classmates supported him. That's how all my classmates were happy, except Fabian, of course, and Dennis became strong. Yesterday they beat him. Did he turn into a kung fu master overnight? Everyone was surprised. Indeed, after he was beaten, not only was he without a single abrasion, but he also attacked 3 of his classmates. It's Dennis, whispered one of Jerry's friends, who was carrying them. I think you should think about your words. Otherwise, after school, you may not return home, he addressed the 3 brats. We ourselves fell and got hurt, said Jerry. Apparently, some insidious plan for revenge had matured in his head, so he decided at this moment to make concessions. They were now seriously afraid of the strong and brave boy. After all, they had reasons for this. Okay, take them to the hospital. Today, you are free from lessons. Miss Ling turned to her friend Jerry. Well done, Dennis. Great, Dennis has overthrown this trio. Now Dennis is my idol. All that was heard in the class were the satisfied exclamations of the students. Dennis, that's not all, Fabian said as he left the class. He was very angry with the boy, and he was already planning something against him. So many of the beaten classmates had one more accomplice. Bro, why didn't you let me tell you that Dennis did it? Asked friend Jerry, leading them out into the street. He could not understand how their gang leader could surrender so easily. Then he will be expelled from school, but if he is expelled, how will I take revenge on him? There are many more ways to get revenge. I'll show him, exclaimed Jerry, clenching his fist. What are we going to do now, bro? The man carrying the beaten guys asked his swollen friend. He was the only one lucky, because he was not so beaten, and could carry both guys on himself. I'll treat the wound first, and then we'll go look for my cousin. He is a serious gangster, and will kill Dennis with one blow, the beaten Jerry reassured the guys. He will dig it up and bury it, the angry, beaten boy continued. Now he was ready for any meanness, just to take revenge on his offender. School. Time, 17:20. Students are walking around the yard, talking loudly about something. Dennis, aren't you going to study until late? The girl's voice came from behind the guy. He was just looking at his magical new watch. Of course not. I don't see the point in messing around with this, he answered. It was Megan, she asked the boy a question. Studying late into the night is a way of self-discipline. And anyway, you come home and sit down to play. If you don't get into the top 100, you'll have to study at night. The girl continued to teach him, sternly placing her hand on his hips. How come this new class teacher is so annoying? I understand. Now I'll study at home, not play, Dennis answered her, waving his hand as if dismissing her. What is the point of studying? Now I need to hurry home to play with my watch, the boy thought, and he rushed home as fast as he could. After all, the boy was not very serious about his studies. He thought this pastime was too boring, tedious, and too painstaking. Hello, master. Today your training level is 0, so your super convertibility level is also 0. If you want to acquire more abilities, then please study well. His notification bug began to receive. What did you say? The boy asked. First, Megan taught him, now the system. This is what everyone is worried about his academic performance. And only he thought about how boring and hard it is to study. Super convertible. Are these convertible points that can be exchanged for abilities? Dennis asked in surprise. To the point, the system responded. So you said, these points depend only on how much material I studied in a day? The guy sighed heavily. I thought that now he wouldn't be able to get out of the books. This is an incentive to study. Bingo! Exclaimed the signaling bug. For each acquired knowledge, you will receive 1 point in your account, and if you have 50 points, then you can acquire some ability. The system continued to explain. Understood! So this means that I can't stop studying, Dennis exclaimed. For creatures from the lower world, this is the only way to communicate with creatures from the higher world. So, Master, change your point of view and treat your studies correctly. The bug finished explaining to him. Your explanations are much clearer than all the instructions I have ever read, the boy said to the system. Thank you, she replied gratefully. Meanwhile, Dennis's father was just about to close the store. He worked there until late, without putting any effort, because I had to live on something and provide for my family. This boy. It's so late and he's still playing video games. Since his mother died, he has become a completely different person. He can't even study normally, the man thought about his son. He was really worried about Dennis. Well, I better go and talk to him. I can't let his past ruin his future. His father decided to do the wise thing. Dennis, the father called the boy, knocking on the door. It's not locked. You can come in. The son answered him, surprisingly cheerfully and calmly. He was very surprised to find his son studying. Because I was sure that he was playing video games. After all, he was just about to talk to him about it. Dad, did something happen? The boy asked him. Without even being distracted from studying. He was very serious and focused on his studies. Do you study? Are these textbooks? The father exclaimed in a very surprised voice. His eyes became big like an owl's. He didn't know what to think or what to say in this case. But I didn't want to scare my son away. After all, for the first time in all this time, he saw him studying and not playing video games. Dad, that's rude. I'm not an idiot. Do I really need to prove this to you? Do you doubt me? Dennis asked, turning to his father. He was very convincing and overly serious. Of course not. I'm just a little surprised, the father answered affectionately. He scratched his cheek with his hand, an old bead of sweat. In fact, he was very surprised. He just didn't admit it to the boy. Dad, do you know what else is very cool? The boy asked him, smiling. What? Asked the father. He no longer knew what to expect from his wiser son. This is what we know so little about the world around us. I used to think that youth was needed to be a rebel, an ignoramus, to fight hard and love to have fun, the boy began to explain to his father. This is what he said at the end. Now, I understand that real youth is when a person seeks knowledge in order to innovate and help the world develop. He continued to expand on the topic. The father listened very attentively and very surprised. It's clear. Great job. Continue in the same spirit, son, his father answered him, remaining very pleased. After all, what parent wouldn't like such a serious attitude towards their child's studies? The father, having listened to Dennis, walked out the door, leaving him to continue his studies. He quickly closed the door behind him so that his son would not notice his excessive surprise. What's wrong with my son? Why did he change so dramatically? I should go to a fortune teller. I don't want my son to go crazy. After all, he did not expect such a drastic change in his son. I would like to remind you that if the owner perceives his powers as something normal, he will be disappointed, said the beetle alarm. I just started studying, don't get me wrong, the boy said, turning to the system. After all, for him, it was all new, unexpected, simply incredible. After my mother's death, I stopped studying seriously. Dennis began to tell the bug to the alarm, remembering his past. His eyes trembled with memories. Mom wanted me to go into the big world to study for a brighter life, and not for the sake of my parents, he continued. Mom really wanted me well, a better life than hers. So she wanted and insisted on my studying, the boy said, tearing up. How could I forget her words? I have to work hard for my future life, and she wouldn't want me to get depressed, the boy said with tears in his eyes. Thank you, SB, he thanked the bug. Thank you for what? The system asked, not understanding why the boy was thanking her. Do not mind it. Can you change your name? It's very difficult to pronounce. It doesn't have any meaning. It's just a code name. Such a conversation was heard on the street near the store. Why hasn't my brother come yet? Jerry asked, sitting on a bench outside. This guy was clearly waiting for someone, and it was obviously connected with Dennis. After all, he couldn't easily forgive his classmate for how he kicked his and his friends' asses. Then something flew at him. A Coca-Cola bottle. They hit him right in the wounded head. Who's here? He asked, jumping up sharply from the bench. Bro! Said some guy approaching him. There were 3 of them. They walked very menacingly and confidently, like a gang of some street killer scumbags. Who did this to you? Is there anyone at your school who doesn't give a damn about me and my authority? Continued the impudent guy, with a ring in his nose. He was very healthy looking, with a huge scar all over his face. Brother, you must avenge me. Yes, this is all my classmate Dennis. He fights well. Cried on the chest of the guy Jerry, like a snotty girl. He buried himself in the big man's chest and screamed, blowing snot. And how strong is he? Can he defend himself from the knife? Asked the guy with the nose ring, looking at the knife in his hand. He took out a bladed weapon, ready to use it against Dennis at any opportune moment. Because this guy really was a scumbag. Tomorrow after school, bring him to the park behind the school. I'll kill him there, the formidable boy said, licking the knife with his tongue. No problem, bro. I'll arrange everything, Jerry answered him. He has already stopped whining and even became very cheerful. Only some kind of fear entered into him. After all, he was cocky, but only with the weak and with the strong he was a prick. But it's better not to kill anyone. After all, if you use a knife, you can easily find yourself in trouble, he said, scared. Come here! The guy with the ring in his nose beckoned with his finger. He looked quite intimidating. It feels like this knife was ready to stab anyone. Shut your mouth, he shouted, and hit him on the cheek with his hand as hard as he could. The poor guy flew off to the side. He did not expect this from what he thought was his protector. This guy with the nose ring was much more dangerous than Dennis. Since he committed lawlessness on the streets and was ready to even kill for the sake of his principles. If he hit you, then I will destroy him. If I don't do this, how can I manage this area? Do you understand? The impudent guy continued, grabbing him by the chest. I understand, I got it. If something happens to Dennis, I'll just say that I don't know anything, he promised with fear in his eyes. After all, he already managed to piss like a girl. It's not every day you have to deal with armed thugs. The next day came. With such perseverance, I will definitely cope with the last task. A conversation in the building was heard. Eh? Are you going to drag me into this again? The second one answered. Master, I don't want this anymore. School is finally over! The lessons lasted so long, the students said as they ran out of the classroom. Faster, faster, faster! There should still be room in the internet cafe. I'll get there first, the boy exclaimed. I'll return home, work out, and then I'll have almost the required number of points. I think I can earn 2 more points today. Later, I'll see what I can buy, Dennis thought meanwhile, putting the textbook in his briefcase. Super convertible knowledge, 13 points. It has already been observed in a guy. I recommend that you exchange 15 points not for abilities, but for increasing your health level, the system suggested. I don't think so, the boy answered her. Stubbornness will get you nowhere, the alarm bug continued. Whatever happens, the boy decided. Hey, Dennis, a girl named Megan called out to him. She noticed him from afar and immediately found herself nearby. Megan, did you want something? The guy turned around and asked. He was already heading towards the exit. When the girl called out to him, well, maybe we can go home together, she continued to ask, and I got a little embarrassed again. Her reddened, flaming cheeks immediately gave her away. Did I mishear now? He asked himself. Being a little shocked. He simply did not expect such a question from such a girl, whom many at school dream of. Bastard! What's going on in Megan's head? What did she find in this Dennis? Fabian thought, standing behind the wall, gritting his teeth. He watched them like a maniac. Already drool appeared on his lips, trembling with anger. Great! Dennis, you'll pay for this! The guy hissed, looking after them. He gritted his teeth wildly, thinking about what to do, how to annoy this guy. Hey, Dennis! Jerry called him, suddenly jumping out from somewhere around the corner. He always appeared like a jackal from behind the bushes, very unexpectedly and with some kind of trick. Jerry? Why is he here? The boy turned around and thought. It was as if he sensed something was wrong. Don't pay him any attention. Let's go, the girl said to her traveler. She tried with all her might to take Dennis away from all unpleasant conversations and danger. Don't worry. I still needed to do something. Taking the girl's hand, he answered her, smiling. He touched my hand, Megan whispered. Her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment and excitement. She held her hand, remembering the touch. Do you want to be beaten again? He asked the guy, coming closer. Dennis, I'm here to apologize, the guy said, leaning towards him. He smiled maliciously, thinking that this was not at all visible from the outside. An apology? I don't need any apologies. As far as I know, a guy like you should have already filled out a complaint with his uncle in order to expel me, the boy answered him. I have prepared an apology ceremony for you in the park behind the school, and I would like you to come watch. Jerry laughed wickedly, rubbing his hands. I can't wait to take your last breath. Wait a minute, and you'll see everything for yourself. The guy continued to think about the insidious plan. Apology ceremony? I think if you really want to apologize so badly, then you should do it here, Dennis told him. How can I do this here? Let's go. This time, I really want to apologize, Jerry continued, taking his arm and smiling. He was already slowly taking the boy to where it was planned. Megan, for now, go ahead and lend me Dennis for a while. Turning to the girl and leading the boy away, he turned to her. He smiled so sweetly, like a snake that just wants to lure you somewhere and then sharply bite you on the sly. Looks like this guy has set a trap for me in the back of the park. Well, let's see what I can do, the guy thought, going towards danger, understanding this in advance. Dennis, don't go, Megan exclaimed. She seemed to feel something bad. It's okay. Go home quickly. Moreover, I have few friends at school, and this is my chance to get closer to my classmates, he answered her, reassuring her. No, this Jerry can't just change. I should follow them, the girl decided to herself. And she began to follow them. Park Leaf is in front of us! Beautiful, with huge green trees and the gentle songs of beautiful birds. We're almost there. There's nothing left. Jerry laughed as he continued leading the boy to the park. He's getting closer and closer. It looks like this guy has some kind of plan, Dennis decided. After all, he's not some kind of fool. He understood perfectly well that the guy was leading him into a trap. Where are you taking me? The boy decided to ask him directly. He glanced sideways at his classmate, waiting for an answer. Don't worry, we're already there. I'm going to send you... He began the sentence, smiling sarcastically. Into the very heat of hell, he finished. And he pushed the boy towards 3 bandits, who were already waiting for him with clubs in their hands. The guy flew away, burying his back right into one of them. The boy skillfully jumped to the side. He was as agile as lightning. And I was already ready for danger, but I didn't think that there would be 3 of them, also armed. And you quickly jumped back. What are you, a monkey? Said the chief with an earring in his nose and laughed disgustingly. He stood like a huge block, squinting disgustingly. His scar stretched all the way across his lousy face. They tried to stab me in the back. Are you trying to kill me? Dennis exclaimed. He immediately threw his school backpack aside. He was already preparing for defense and attack. And you're smart. We're really trying to kill you. The leader answered him. He held a heavy metal club on his shoulder. He threatened the guy with a bladed weapon. A razor-sharp knife was hidden in his pocket. If I don't kill you today, then I won't be able to stay here anymore, continued the big guy with a ring in his nose. The 3 of them surrounded the unarmed boy. Dennis was again in great danger. only if until now he was attacked with fists or a wooden mop, now with iron bars, which was much more dangerous. After all, there were 3 of them, and each of them had a club. I need to get out. If something happens here, then I will be the first suspect. Jerry thought in the meantime and gave in. He was a cowardly jackal who tried to escape. Cousin, I'll stay on my guard. Don't let him go, he shouted to the gang. And he himself rushed to quickly escape from the scene of the impending crime. Only his heels sparkled. Great, said the big man. He grabbed the metal club tightly in his hands, preparing to attack. He lifted it over his thick head. You shouldn't have contacted my family. Get what you deserve, exclaimed the rioters. All 3 of them took up clubs and began to attack the boy. One of them, raising his club, swung it with all his might and struck. Dennis put up a defensive block. He managed to put his arm forward, bending it at the elbow. The guy turned over doing a somersault. How did his arm not break from the blow of such a huge metal stick? Which was quite surprising and strange. Even taking into account the bonus to strength, +10 is difficult, thought the boy. He knelt down on one knee, holding his beaten hand with his other hand. Although it did not break, the pain was intense. I see this kid has hard bones, but I've already broken many of these, and today, I will break yours too, the big man exclaimed, running up to him again with a club. He grinned like a beast. He was a frost-bitten wild animal, and he saw in front of him not a person like him, but a victim. Master, would you like to start the exchange process? You only need 10 points to acquire additional points for strength, the system addressed him. No need! Let's leave this for later! He answered the bug to the siren. Meanwhile, they tried to strike him a second time, but the boy deftly dodged again. He was very agile, like a little snake. Meanwhile, Jerry ran away as fast as he could. He turned back and ran away. And he was horrified by what the bandits were doing to the guy. He fled the crime scene like a coward. Jerry, what? Why are you alone? Where is Dennis? The frightened girl asked him. She deliberately ran out, blocking his path. It's none of your business, the guy answered her. And he moved sharply further, passing by. The girl couldn't understand what happened, but clearly something was wrong. Where was Dennis? Tell me what's wrong with Dennis, or I'll call the police, Megan shouted, grabbing him by his jacket and stopping him. She wasn't going to leave or give up until this nasty guy told her where Dennis was. If she calls the police, I'll be in trouble too. I think it will work with her too. Maybe I should go with you? The scoundrel has already formed a new plan. Dennis is surrounded by bandits. Come with me. I was going to help him. It's too late to call the police, the guy exclaimed. And he dragged the girl to where the massacre took place. God, then let's hurry, she answered him. The girl was very scared for the boy. After all, he was all alone, and there was a whole gang of thugs. Meanwhile, Dennis deftly dodged the blow, clenched his strong fist, jumped up and hit the big man on the chin with all his might. Okay, boy, I admit, you're not bad. Hey, what are you two waiting for? Beat him, said the leader, wiping the blood from his mouth with his hand. The guy staggered slightly, but did not fall. Die! The degenerates with clubs shouted, and the 3 of them rushed at the unarmed guy. They rushed like wild animals at defenseless prey. You are so slow, said Dennis. He very deftly dodged their blows. He was not very simple, and was not going to behave like a victim. He fought for his life for his father, himself and a girl named Megan. And dodging the next blow, he clenched his strong fist again. This time he hit the big guy right in the jaw. And the blow was much more powerful than before. Is this force +10? It's very easy to evade the attacks of an ordinary person, thought the boy. He did this very deftly and confidently, jumping away just in time from numerous blows with iron. You both get it, Dennis exclaimed, using 2 fists at once. He clearly hit the target. The guys staggered. Such powerful blows are beyond the power of an ordinary person. If you move again, I'll wring your necks, the boy threatened them, taking them by the chests. He lifted them up and held them for a long time without releasing his grip. "Dennis!" the girl called out to him. She stood on the sidelines watching what was happening. She was very worried about the boy, especially when I saw 3 armed big men. "Please, have pity! Have pity on us!" The bandits begged for mercy. The boy held them by the throat with both hands, each with one hand. It was an incredible sight. The guy's strength has increased significantly. "Drop your pipe or I'll break their necks right now," he said in a menacing tone, turning to the leader. He squeezed their necks even tighter and wasn't joking at all. "And you fight well." "That's it. I left her." "Now let my brothers go," he answered, throwing the piece of iron aside. Still, he valued his snoops. "And you are quite loyal," said the guy. "Dennis, are you okay?" Megan shouted, rushing to the boy. She distracted him a little by calling. He turned to the girl. Meanwhile, the big man took advantage of the fact that the guy was distracted and hid something behind his back. Dennis could not notice this. Such an important detail escaped his gaze. It was a knife. He managed to take out a bladed weapon and instantly rushed at the boy with it. It was very fast, as far as Dennis was dexterous, but being distracted, he did not have time to do anything. "My boy, if you don't look around, you will lose your life!" The leader growled with a wild roar as he approached him. "Is this the end?" thought the boy, seeing the shiny tip of a knife in front of him. Cold metal glittered before his eyes. Then, long blonde hair flashed in front of his face. They turned a bloody crimson color. What happened? How did the girl end up right in front of him? "Megan!" Dennis exclaimed with a wild cry. The girl wanted to help the boy and found herself in front of him, as if covering him with her own body. The blow hit her straight. "Bastard," the guy said, clenching his strong fist. Like the wind, he rushed towards the big man in one rush. His anger knew no bounds. Okay, but the big guy wounded the girl. It's still unknown what condition she was in. And he hit him straight in the jaw and knocked him to the ground. The big man flew several meters back, falling on his back. Blood gushed from the nose and mouth after the boy's powerful blow. He vomited up everything he had eaten before, mixed with blood. It was like an explosion at the scene of the fight. Clouds of smoke and dust. The green forest dimmed slightly from bad energy, and now it seemed to breathe as if evil had permeated its aura. "Megan!" the boy exclaimed. He took the wounded girl in his arms. Streams of scarlet blood flowed from her mouth. He moved closer to her, trying to understand what condition she was in, whether she was alive at all. "Come on, call the police," the girl whispered, losing consciousness. Her pink shirt became redder and redder, shining with a scarlet stain on her chest. Oh God! What did the boy think of her, even if the wound was shallow? "Idiot! How dare you touch our bro!" "Die!" the leader's friends shouted. They attacked Dennis, waving iron clubs. They still didn't let up. Even after their leader stabbed the girl with a knife, the guy turned his back to them, and the batons scattered against him into several small pieces. How can this be? Because an ordinary person would have died long ago from such strong blows with iron. There were drops of scarlet blood on the boy's face. His eyes glowed transparent white. My hair stood on end. This was too much on the part of the vile, bloodthirsty bandits. "This guy is a monster!" the bandits exclaimed. They were shocked, holding iron clubs broken on his back in their hands. "Help! Let's run! Forget the boss!" the guys shouted. And they ran at such speed that only their heels sparkled. They abandoned their leader just to save their asses. "Megan, hold on. I'll take you to the hospital right away." The guy turned to the unconscious girl, and he rushed as fast as he could to the medical institution. "Master, she has open puncture wounds and multiple internal injuries. If you continue to shake her like this, she may not make it to the hospital," the system informed him. "So, now you have only one option left. Use your super convective glasses to get a medicine that will save her life," the alarm bug continued. "How many points will you need?" the boy asked the system. "Judging by your injuries, you need to spend 12 points, answered the bug. 12 points is too much. But Megan was the only one who cared about me at school. If my glasses help, then I'm ready to sacrifice them, the guy answered with complete confidence. If she dies, I won't be able to forgive myself. Exchange. I'll save you, Megan! The boy exclaimed, looking at the helpless wounded girl. He was very worried about his classmate, because a knife wound is not a joke at all, especially since the tip of the knife belonged to him, not her. He should have been in the girl's place. Accepted. I'll exchange 12 super convertibility points for an injury healing pill. You only have 1 point left. The balance of super convertibility is 1 point. The system has finished counting. The watch glowed bright blue. Yellow rays emanated from them in different directions. The system did its job clearly and skillfully. Understood! Megan, I will save you, he said, approaching her bloody lips with a blue glow. She's unconscious, the boy exclaimed. Otherwise, she won't be able to take the pill, Dennis continued, asking the system. Please note, if the woman is not in a deep coma, you can chew the tablet and then put it in her mouth so she can swallow it. The bug signaler gave instructions. Chew it and then put it in her mouth, the boy asked. He blushed a little with excitement and embarrassment. No problem, he answered, taking the table into his mouth. He did everything as the system explained. After all, it was necessary to save the innocent girl at all costs. Sorry. I have to save you, the boy said, and approaching the girl's lips, he handed her a life-saving pill. And then, the girl opened her eyes. She saw the boy in front of her and felt the sweetness of his lips mixed with the taste of scarlet blood. What is he doing? Flashed through Megan's head when she woke up. Dennis is kissing me, thought the girl. After all, she didn't understand what was happening, that the boy was saving her life by handing over the pill. She crawled a meter away from him, resting her hands on the ground. The wound on her chest disappeared. It seemed to tighten itself. Dennis, you just did that? The girl began to speak, covering her mouth with her hand. She blushed with embarrassment. The cheeks were glowing pink. She couldn't understand what happened. What's happened? I just hit that bastard and gave you a pill for a knife wound, he explained to the embarrassed girl, so that she wouldn't think that he kissed her brazenly, taking advantage of the moment. No, that's not the point, she said, closing her eyes. She seemed to be deep in thought. After all, she had just been mortally wounded. My wound, am I healed? So fast? How is this possible? Megan asked in bewilderment. She was simply shocked. What kind of magical power did the boy have? My wound, she whispered incessantly. Get up, I'll explain everything later. I hit the guy on the head there. Let's go check on him, he said to the girl, helping her to her feet. They approached the bandit sprawled on the ground. The leader with a ring in his nose lay motionless. It was as if he already had 1 foot in the next world. He's still unconscious, said Dennis, looking at the big man. Come on, wake up! He began to move the scoundrel who wanted to kill him. He hit him on the cheeks with his hand to bring him to his senses. The guy with the nose ring opened his eyes and looked at Dennis with a dull gaze. Everything swam before his eyes. Demon! The guy exclaimed. He crawled back, screaming, with horror in his eyes. It was as if he was afraid of this guy, who, like a machine, did not break under the blows of iron rods and also neutralized 3 criminals. Did Jerry send you here to cause me trouble? He asked the scoundrel murderer, looking into his shameless eyes. Those 2 abandoned you and dumped you, he continued to tell the big man, holding his hands in his pockets. He told him about his traitor friends who had run away, leaving him lying unconscious. The leader tried to get to his feet. He wanted to attack the boy again. And Dennis, without being confused, stepped on his hand. The bastard screamed in pain. I want you to remember today well, he began to explain to the offender, standing on his hand. He ruled out any attempts at a new attack on himself or the girl. Enough already? I almost killed them. Do you understand? Having told him everything he wanted, the boy asked at the end. He looked confidently into his impudent, lousy eyes. Yes, I got it, Brother Dennis. I'll never bother you again. The guy with the ring in his nose growled, doubled over in pain. He screamed even louder in pain. Dennis pressed his hand even harder to the ground to teach him the lesson as clearly as possible. He howled in pain like an animal driven into a cage. That's not all. From this day forward, you will be my number 6, he said to the big man. Even though I have the strength, I can't do it alone. I'm not very willing to take on people like him, an ordinary bully. But if I control him, I think he can bring me benefits, the boy decided, crossing his arms over his chest. Yes, okay, Brother Dennis. From now on, I obey you? The guy with the ring in his nose said, raising his eyes guiltily. Remember, I can always find you. Wherever you are, the boy said to the girl, taking her hand. They looked at each other with tenderness. The guy was very glad that he could save her life. I didn't expect him to break the iron pipe. Jerry also escaped. Some brat will order me around? I was daydreaming, thought the bastard, writhing in pain. If I can't beat him one-on-one, I'll start a dirty game, he decided. Since it was beyond his strength to obey Dennis, he wasn't going to give up. Dennis, do you really need to get involved with such people? She asked the boy, very worried about him. Of course not. I simply don't have enough time for them. I just said it like that, he explained to the girl, so that she would not worry about him. After all, he doesn't need such vile assistants who don't spare others. In the end, it is better to fight the danger alone than with those who will put a knife in your back.
I don't know how I would explain what happened to her to the police. What if they take her away for experiments and torture her? The boy thought.
What are you looking at? The girl asked, holding her cheeks with her hands. And he was just looking at the red spot from the wound on her chest. No, you misunderstood everything, he answered her, now looking somewhere into the distance. He was really thinking about her wound, which had healed as if by magic. Dennis, wait! The boy, holding his hands in his pockets, turned around and walked straight down the alley. I just wanted to know about this wound. She turned to the boy, moving her blouse a little so that he could see the wound better. What kind of pill was this? How in the world can there even be such a medicine? I don't even have a trace of the wound left, the girl continued to be interested. Did you think I could hurt you? The boy asked her in response, turning away. After all, he would never take advantage of a girl while she was unconscious. I didn't think about that. I believe that you wouldn't hurt me, she exclaimed, smiling, waving her arms to the sides. Okay, do you trust me? He asked the girl, turning around, looking straight into her eyes as if he was trying to understand something. Now I can't tell you everything, but understand. Now I'm not the same as I was before, he told her. Have you changed? The girl asked in surprise, opening her big bright eyes. Although she already understood that something had happened to the guy and was continuing to happen, he really became different. Yeah, he answered briefly, but not entirely clearly. After all, the girl still didn't know much about him. Now I won't give up, the boy exclaimed. He raised his hand up as if talking to the heavens. He was even more confident in his abilities and plans for the future. I'm going to take responsibility for my life, he continued, clenching his raised hand into a fist. And if for his own, then for the lives of his family and loved ones, the boy thought. Dennis has finally emerged from the shadows. Aunt, you can relax, Megan said to herself, smiling. Then I won't ask. I believe you and will wait for that day, said the girl. They held hands cutely. When the girl took his hand, the boy looked embarrassed, thinking about something of his own. Hey, what does this mean? Why are you holding my hand? He immediately asked her, as if waking up, blushing a little. Do not make me laugh. When you go to school, we can, she began. Let's speed up, she urged the boy, not letting go of his hand. Now we are best friends, exclaimed the girl. She smiled sweetly at Dennis, looking into his eyes. The boy also smiled back at her, thoughtful. After all, he respected his classmate and trusted only her. Okay, he confidently answered her, without letting go of the girl's gentle hand. Good morning, a classmate turned to Dennis and said to him. The boy, meanwhile, moved around the class with his hands in his pockets. Dennis, did you sleep at all last night? Asked his classmate, a nerd. Apparently, the boy didn't look very fresh after that terrible brawl. I came home very late yesterday, the guy answered him calmly. Yesterday, I spent all my points, so I spent the whole night reading history books, he thought. Then, are you sure you can work today? The botanist asked him again, not sure that the boy will withstand the load of the whole day. Yeah, summer holidays are in 2 weeks, and final exams are approaching. The boy with glasses continued talking to him. Looks like Jerry's plan failed yesterday, Fabian thought, looking out of the corner of his eye at Dennis. No, I can't let Dennis continue this. The restless guy continued to think. Final exams are in 2 weeks. I should brush up on my knowledge, Dennis decided in the meantime. After all, he has already lost quite a lot of points. And I was ready to study a lot in order to regain my lost points and add even more. Dennis! Fabian suddenly approached him and turned to him. He placed his hands on the desk and leaned slightly towards the boy. What? Dennis asked him in response. I dare to bet. He began his conversation, standing up to his full height and raising his hand up. He came up with something again, since he dared to approach him so boldly. Fabian, what is he up to again? The girl stood to the side and looked at them. Megan was smart enough to suspect this guy of cunning plans. If I get a high score on the final exam, then you won't go near Megan again. And if it's less, I'll never talk to her again, he said, addressing the boy. If you are a man, let's compete fairly, he continued, holding his hands in his pockets. Wow, this is a duel for the head of the class, the classmate said, turning in their direction. I envy her, was heard from a classmate from another desk. Fabian is one of the top 5 students in the school. And he shamelessly argued with Denise, didn't he? Megan thought meanwhile. This, she thought, pressing her hand to her chest. The girl didn't know what to think. No, don't agree. He's trying to provoke you. You haven't forgotten that he's in the top 5 of the school. The nerd turned to the boy, gently taking him by the shoulder. Okay, the guy answered. He agreed to such an interesting dispute. Apparently, he was confident that he would master all the material in such a short time. Dennis, are you crazy? Exclamations were heard in the class. Will he really compete with him? A boy climbed in from another desk. Dennis, you can say goodbye to our school flower once and for all. Fabian intimidated him further, but this guy won't be scared that easily. Do you really want to argue with Fabian? Megan asked him, coming closer. I'll win, don't worry. Besides, the guy began to answer with complete self-confidence. You are not a thing, and Fabian is using you as a prize in an argument with me, so I'm going to destroy him. Dennis continued to explain to the girl. It's clear. From now on, I will study with you, she told him, smiling. Wow, she's even ready to sit with him all day long reading books. Study with me, the boy exclaimed. He jumped up in surprise. The girl then offered him her helping hand. Don't underestimate me. Fabian is in the top 5, but I'm in the top 3, the girl reassured him, smiling. She was really good at studies, and she could tell the boy a lot. Will you train him? I will show you that even if you help such a loser until his death, he will still remain a loser, Fabian said to himself, watching them. Hello, Uncle Ricci. He immediately called someone, and smiling impudently, walked further down the corridor. He decided on another meanness. Yes, it's me. I need your help with something, he told his uncle on the phone. Did you say that you want to get the questions for this final exam? The uncle asked in surprise. Streams of sweat ran down his cheeks. He did not expect such a request from the boy. Fabian, your father is in a special position. If he finds out about this, you'll be in trouble. He answered him. This is not for me. Don't worry about it, Uncle Ricci replied. These questions will lie at the house of one loser, he reassured his uncle, vilely rubbing his hands. Meanwhile, we see the library of High School Number 4. A huge bright building, illuminated by the rays of the sun. In fact, the solution to this issue is quite simple, Megan explained to the boy. She tried to help him as best she could. She helped him master a very difficult formula. They were very complex and confusing. So, rarely has anyone been able to solve such complex theorems. Simple? The boy asked, very surprised. He was already sweating with horror at the sight of such difficult examples. How can he absorb so much new information? If you can't solve this, then don't even think about winning, the girl said, holding her head with her hand. She was a little upset because she was worried that the boy might lose this argument. I'll solve it. Just give me a little more time. Dennis answered her. And I began to carefully consider each example. He tried to delve into every figure, but so far nothing had worked. Master, can I help you? The alarm bug asked him. The boy sat over the notebook, leaning on his hands and sadly looking at the numbers flashing before his eyes. I completely forgot. Can you exchange my points for something that can increase my intelligence? The boy asked the system, really hoping for a positive result. Of course, but perhaps you won't be able to use it now, the alarm bug answered him. You spent 10 points, you have 11 left. Smart lipstick, intelligence +2. The system made the exchange, strengthening his IQ, increases intelligence by +2. For 10 points. With these prices, all my points accumulated last night will be used, Dennis exclaimed, upset. Spit! First, I will increase my intelligence, he decided, without giving up. And he agreed with the system, since without additional intelligence, he probably would not have coped. That's right, isn't it? The boy said, taking the lipstick. He sat in front of the textbook with this new thing in his hand. I wonder how to use it to better open your mind. He closed his eyes and began to think hard, holding the lipstick in his hand. He blew on her, thinking that a miracle would happen. I twisted and turned, but for some reason nothing happened. Master, to use smart lipstick, you need to apply it to your lips. The system began to explain to him how to use the new intelligence. Do you have a clear idea of how to solve this? Megan asked Denisa, turning to him with a book in her hands. Aye, the boy began laughing. He just didn't know what to answer the girl. He just smiled stupidly, wondering what to say. After all, he didn't really know the answers yet. I knew it. You're playing again. You don't care at all about the competition, the girl said, turning away. And here I am, taking care of you, the girl continued, blowing smoke out of her ears. She was not a little cutely angry. Megan, he turned to her. In fact, I care, he answered her, gently taking her hand. After all, he himself agreed to an argument with a classmate. The girl immediately turned to him, surprised. They both turned red with embarrassment. Dennis, what are you doing? She asked him somehow indignantly, as if confused, but not because he took her hand. The boy painted his lips with red lipstick. The smart lipstick also turned out to be red. The answer to this question? The boy suddenly began to give answers to questions from the book, very quickly and confidently. How did you recognize him? The girl asked, her eyes bulging with great surprise. How could this guy just 5 minutes ago not understand the examples at all? But now he immediately began to give such answers. It's a very simple equation, he answered her. The boy smiled, realizing that the smart lipstick really worked. It really works! Now I understand how to solve this, all thanks to lipstick, thought the boy, incredibly happy about this acquisition, and then move on to the rest of the examples. The pen already sparkled in his hand from the speed of the decision. It was as if he had become an ace in solving these most complex examples. I can believe it! Did he put on lipstick to show his determination? The girl whispered in surprise. This is something new, she thought, opening her huge bright eyes. He's willing to do something like that to change himself, and I would be doing him a disservice if I didn't do everything I could to help him. Megan continued to think, if you are ready to motivate yourself in this way, then I will do everything possible to help you. She decided to do just that. Dennis, I didn't think that you had such a courageous trait. She turned to the boy, taking his hands. She sincerely praised the guy. What? The boy was surprised. He blushed again with embarrassment. In principle, which is not at all surprising. Meanwhile, the events taking place in Dennis's father's shop a few days later. In his dumpling shop, one of the customers was sitting at a table. It was as if he had been waiting for something for a long time. Dennis has been studying hard lately. The father thought about his son with great pride and hope. He was very happy about his son's success. It finally dawned on him, the father continued to think. And the man sitting at the table looked at him from a quiet place. It was Fabian's uncle. This is a great opportunity! The owner is distracted and is not paying attention to me, thought Uncle Ricci, looking sideways at the man. He was about to carry out his evil plan. He was so focused on his phone that he didn't notice anything around him. Then the father finally looked up, looking up from the phone screen. "Where is that man?" "He hasn't paid yet!" the father exclaimed. His head went completely blank. Wow, how could he screw up an impudent client who fooled him so easily? I hope he picks it up. In the end, I didn't pay for the food on purpose, thought Uncle Ricci, filming Dennis's father as he ran away to his table. With this video, even if you throw it away, you will still be drawn into the investigation, the uncle said, grinning. Left this here. Okay, I think sooner or later he will come back for it, the man decided, taking the folder that was lying on him from the table. Of course, he took this thing from the table, but only to be sure to return it to the owner. After all, the man was an honest person and would never take someone else's property. Today I scored some good points, the happy boy thought to himself as he walked home, smiling. He was happy with his results. SB0. What are my current rates? Dennis asked the siren bug. He, very tired and exhausted from studying, sat down on the edge of the sofa. He could barely stand on his feet from exhaustion. Danny. Intelligence 8, physical strength 12, spirit 7, luck 4, ability 0. The system immediately notified him. Mind, I wonder, after purchasing an item, will I be able to buy it again? Or will the system randomly generate another one? The boy thought. After using lipstick, which increases intelligence by +2, my other stats also increased. But what is the use of this luck? The guy thought. My son, aren't you hungry? The father asked Dennis when he came home. He was just setting the table for himself. Father, what is this? The boy asked, approaching the folder that his father took from the table. He immediately noticed an unknown object that was not in their house. I don't know, this was left by a visitor. I thought he would return, but I waited until the evening and he never returned, answered the father. I have a bad feeling about this, the boy thought, and reached out to the notebook. And his premonition never let him down. Son, don't open other people's things, the father turned to him. But the boy had already opened the package. This, the guy started to say, but his jaw dropped in shock. He did not expect to see this in this package. What is it? Asked the father, seeing the surprise in Dennis's eyes. Apparently, the bad feeling did not let the boy down. Tickets for high school final exams, the guy read in a loud voice. Someone is trying to set me up by slipping these tickets to me, he said, turning to his father. The boy immediately realized what the catch was. What? What should we do? Should we just throw them away? Asked the father, getting up from the table. He was already sweating with excitement. It's useless. If he left them on purpose, it could mean that he has a plan in case we throw them away, he answered his father. Dad, you have nothing to worry about. I have a plan that will help deal with this, he told the couple, calming him down. And he walked out the door with this notebook. So, since I already have tickets, it would be stupid to throw them away without examining them, the boy decided, closing the door behind him. If you are ready to motivate yourself in this way, then I will do everything possible to help you. He remembered Megan's words. But if I read them now, it will be unfair to everyone, and I will also tell Megan, because she helped me, the boy thought. And yet he closed the folder, deciding not to open the tickets that had been thrown at him for now. After all, he has not yet come up with a plan on how best to act in this situation. Fabian, prepare to lose. I will win this battle on my own. The boy finally decided for himself, and he hid the notebook with tickets under the hem of his jacket. He decided to play fair in this dispute. Dad, I went for a walk. I'll be back soon. He turned to his father, heading towards the exit. It's already late there, the father thought sadly. After all, he was very worried about his only son. Moreover, the boy was about to go out in the middle of the night. Fabian's huge, bright house stretched out in front of us. It was already dark, so the lights were on throughout the entire house. Here it is, the house of the son of the Minister of Education. I need to find evidence that he was involved in the transfer of tickets. If I have incriminating evidence, he won't even dare to blather, the boy decided, watching the vile enemy's house from behind a tree. Someone is approaching, Dennis realized when he saw the light from the car's headlights. It was a car that stopped right at the gate of the house where the boy was standing behind a tree. I hope you did what I asked you to do, Fabian asked his Uncle Ricci as he got out of the car. Fabian, don't worry. Everything is ready. I have a photo, and I didn't leave any traces, Uncle Ricci said to his nephew, opening the car window. Fine. This Dennis thinks that my goal is to achieve better results than his, but he doesn't even suspect what I'm really up to, the insidious guy thought, holding his hands in his pockets. My plan is worse than some kind of test, Fabian said with a malicious expression on his face. He rejoiced at his own meanness. But you will lose if he has tickets. The uncle turned to his nephew again. He couldn't understand the meaning of what was happening. Will I lose? And yes, but he will be expelled for cheating, and then Megan will finally notice me, he answered confidently. This is how a dishonest classmate decided to win the girl's heart in such an arrogant and vile way. Even if I win, Megan will not pay attention to me while Dennis is at school. The insidious guy finished his arguments. I see. Then it's time to start a plan, Dennis said to himself. After all, he already knew about everything, so all the cards were in his hands. Do you want to get rid of me? Then I'll get rid of your whole family, the boy said, looking after the leaving scoundrel. He continued to follow the scoundrel without losing sight of him. Dennis, even if you throw away the test, it won't save you. Fabian continued to be sarcastic. He smiled lousy, choking on his own poison. This card is proof that the exam papers were left at your home, the guy said, holding the flash drive with the evidence in his hand. Most likely he has a backup copy, the boy decided, as he followed him further. He wanted to play it safe in everything and calculate every step of that scoundrel. Now it's my turn to take revenge, the boy said, filming Fabian. He will not leave such meanness unpunished. Little by little, Dennis began to collect evidence of the vile deception of his vile classmate. Host, please note that in this situation, your phone is only capable of recording silhouettes. You can exchange 2 points, then I will do it for you, the alarm bug explained to him. The system invented some kind of small, unusual micro camera. This was something new. The microcircuit was not visible. It was a hidden microscopic video camera. Don't worry, the recording will start after the points are exchanged, the bug continued to explain, attaching the camera to the boy above his chest. In addition, you will receive an additional feature: invisibility. The siren bug added to what was said. This is great, the guy exclaimed. Dennis was very pleased with this help from the smart system. After all, being invisible is a huge plus for the implementation of the plan. Moreover, not everyone will have such an opportunity to be not just a person, but an invisible person. I'm back, Fabian said, turning to his parents. They were both sitting on the sofa. The father folded his arms on his chest and was not in a very friendly mood, and the mother sat on the chair with her hands strictly folded in her lap. Their faces were not the same as usual. They showed condemnation, irritation, and anger. Kneel down by the wall, the father exclaimed, addressing his son in a commanding tone, knitting his eyebrows. He was very angry with his son. The guy had never seen him like this before. After all, Fabian was allowed a lot in his life. Father, what's wrong with you? I didn't do anything wrong, the boy said, holding his hands in his pockets. But still, streams of sweat ran down his face. He clearly suspected that something was wrong. I know that you asked Uncle Ricci to give you control tickets. How could my son do this? The father was indignant, waving his arms. Don't you think with your own head at all? The indignant father continued to shout at him. How could you even ask him about this? His father continued to shout at him, putting his hands on his hips. He did not expect that his son would do such meanness. Although he himself was no less vile than him. The apple never falls far from the tree. I haven't seen them myself. I did it for a classmate, admitted Fabian. Meanwhile, Dennis stood invisible behind the boy and listened to everything his father told him. Let's not forget that he now had a new video camera. Indeed. What's wrong with him? The boy thought to himself, looking at his father yelling at his son. Even if it's not for you, don't you dare do that! His father continued to be indignant, pushing him, and he hit his son on the cheek as hard as he could. He flew off to the side. His face was burning burgundy. A good slap in the face, Dennis thought to himself. How dare you hit me? Fabian asked his father, looking sideways at him in surprise. He didn't expect this from his father. After all, he usually didn't even swear at him. I will not only hit you, but also disqualify you from the exam, he continued to shout at the unscrupulous, treacherous son, taking him by the chest. He shook him as hard as he could, as if he wanted to shake his entire essence out. Yes, yes, aren't you paid for being so strict and decent? I know everything about how high-ranking people come to you for good grades for their offspring. The arrogant son began to answer him insolently. He smiled sarcastically and was just asking for another slap on the wrist. The father became even more angry. His cheeks burned with rage. And then he could not restrain himself from such obvious impudence of his son. After all, he finally provoked him, and his father's strong fist flew straight into his face, so that the naughty, impudent boy staggered, almost falling from the blow. He was seriously afraid of his father's anger. Even if so, it's all for your own good. The indignant father continued to shout wildly, and Fabian was already lying on the floor from the blow that had landed on him. He fell back onto the floor and lay there with tears in his eyes. Martin! He is your son. Do you want to kill him? The mother intervened, stopping the enraged husband. She stood between them, stopping the man. Let's finish this. Go to your place. The mother turned to her son lying on the floor. Also strictly and seriously. She fully supported her husband in this case. Fabian rose to his feet, very indignant. There was a large burgundy abrasion on his cheek, and anger towards his father lurked in his eyes. In general, in this guy's heart, there was not only a lot of anger, but also rot. Martin, calm down. After all, this is our son, said the woman, approaching her husband. It's all you who spoiled him, he answered her. Like the father, like the son. If the father takes bribes, then the son will do dirty tricks. You justify yourself by saying that this is all for the family, but you're just a piece of garbage trying to seem right, thought Dennis, who was watching what was happening. It's all Dennis's fault, the boy said, gritting his teeth. Fabian slammed both hands on the table, being too angry at the boy. He was ready to kill his classmate if he were nearby. If only he knew that Dennis was already nearby, standing and watching this scene. Is this idiot kidding me? You yourself suggested that argument, Dennis whispered, standing behind the guy with his arms folded on his chest. He didn't know whether to laugh at the impudence and stupidity of this vile guy or cry. But I still chose the first option. Fabian opened the wooden box, which contained a flash drive with evidence of his brazen, vile deception. It's so good that all this happened in front of Dennis, because now all the cards will be in his hands, if, of course, he does the right thing. Just a little more and I'll kick his ass! The unscrupulous, dishonest boy made a decision, grinning slyly. He rubbed his dirty hands together, anticipating his opponent's defeat. Now I won't be able to sleep. I'll go to my uncle's to let off some steam, Fabian thought, and headed to the door. He clearly had no time for sleep, especially after his father hit him in the insolent face. This kid has an excellent nightlife. Can you put a camera on him? Dennis quietly addressed the alarm bug. Okay, the system answered obediently, immediately starting the process. After all, she was like a smart computer, only millions of times more sophisticated, and there were no limits to her supernatural abilities. The system glowed bright blue and a stream of transparent beam touched the back of the guy walking out the door. First, I'll take this, Dennis said, opening the box with the flash drive. After all, he had to get rid of the evidence at all costs, or plan everything differently. He took the evidence and took out a folder with planted tickets from under his jacket. He headed towards the locker. I'm looking forward to the day when you open this box, the boy said, and put the tickets in the wooden box of Fabian's bedside table. Master, you are cunning, the system told him. Curious? The boy answered the bug, turning his head towards him and closing the box. But then something unexpected and bad happened. This is not good, exclaimed the boy. He accidentally touched a nearby clay vase of flowers. She staggered and fell straight down to the floor. That's why he's inattentive. The vase shattered into small fragments. The earth scattered on the floor, and pieces of the green plant lay on top as if dead. The boy's parents and Fabian himself instantly glanced upward. They suspected that someone had broken into the house. Where is the noise coming from? Maybe there are thieves there, the parents thought, but the boy was the first to jump upstairs. Is someone in my room? The guy asked in surprise. He could not understand where such a bright, loud sound came from, and he immediately rushed up the steps to his room. Who is this? How did he get there? Could it be that this is Dennis? Fabian thought to himself, getting up as quickly as possible. Someone is approaching, said the boy, standing in the middle of the room. Don't worry, he won't be able to see you, the system reassured him. Although the boy was invisible, he was still worried about something else. The point is not that he will see me, but that it will make him wary. As soon as he opens the box, all my plans will collapse, he answered the bug to the siren. Meanwhile, Fabian had already reached his room. He quickly opened the door, shouting, "Who is here?" Apparently, he expected to see Dennis, but that was not the case. The guy did not provide him with such great joy. A cat sat near a broken flower pot, sweetly licking its paw. This cat appeared just in time, seemingly out of nowhere. Fabian grabbed the cat by the scruff of the neck with 2 fingers and immediately dragged him to the window. He concluded that the animal simply climbed into him through an open window. Good thing it was a cat. Get out of here, he exclaimed, throwing the cat out the open window, closing it behind him, so that no more creatures would bother him. I thought it was Dennis! The boy calmed down, exhaling. Because of his insidious arguments and plans, all sorts of restless thoughts were already creeping into his head. But this is impossible! There are cameras in my house, thought Fabian. Meanwhile, Dennis made faces at him, sticking out his tongue. Don't be stupid. I'm standing right in front of you, thought Dennis, continuing to grimace. Fabian grabbed the iron door handle and opened it as he went out. He also needed to calm down after the scolding from his father and the worry that his worst enemy had sneaked into the room. I finally got through it, but I didn't expect that stray cat to jump at the most dangerous moment, Dennis thought, finally exhaling. This cat really saved him by being there at the most necessary moment. Master, this is due to an increase in the luck parameter, the system explained to him. Good luck? The boy asked in surprise. After all, he still knew nothing at all about this factor. Yes, human luck is the most fascinating of all meanings. It is quite possible that with the necessary amount of luck, you can even survive in a deadly situation, the bug continued to explain. Dennis. Intelligence 8, physical strength 12, spirit 7, luck 4, abilities 0. The system summarized his indicators. The meaning of luck, the boy thought while walking down the street. He walked with a thoughtful face, holding his hand in his pocket. This means luck is also no less important in my performance, the boy continued to think, already making a plan to learn how to increase it correctly. Somehow, I will need to increase each of these values, especially the value of the ability, which has not yet been used, the guy continued to think. After all, he didn't yet know what the effect of the ability was. Is this the cat? He thought when he saw the animal walking along the path that saved him in that ridiculous situation. Thank you, he turned to the cat, kneeling in front of her so that she would not be afraid. He thanked the cat as if he were a person, but the animal immediately became incredibly scared. The fur stood on end, the eyes protruded, becoming twice as large. The cat jumped with the speed of lightning onto a tall tree that grew nearby and hid on the highest branch. I think I scared her, the boy exclaimed, smiling. And he waved goodbye to the cat, not scaring her anymore. This guy, is he also a medium? The cat thought, looking at the leaving boy. It turned out to be not just a cat, but a medium girl. The boy just didn't understand it yet. I'll need to talk to him sometime, the animal thought, scanning Dennis with its gaze in order to display his image in its visual memory.
Meanwhile, high school building number 4. Today you have not just a final exam, it is a citywide one. The leaders will take places in the city ranking. I hope you don't disgrace our school. The director pushed the speech. Yes! All the students answered at once.
Dennis, I'm sure you read the tickets, Fabian thought with malice in his eyes, sitting at his desk. He could no longer wait for his revenge. Unfortunately, this will be the last exam in your life. The vile classmate continued to think insidiously, smiling slyly. He was already drooling on his lips, in anticipation of punishment for his enemy classmate, and now all the students are sent to the exam. Among them, Dennis, with a backpack on his back, boldly steps into the classroom. After all, he had all the cards in his hands. And he was already completely ready to repel the enemy's attack. Finally, I can find out the results of my week-long training, the boy thought to himself. Dennis! He heard a gentle, familiar voice behind him. The guy immediately turned around. It was his sweet friend and classmate. Good luck, Dennis! Megan wished him, waving her hand. After all, she sincerely wanted him to win. Moreover, the dispute was connected specifically with her. And as was evident from the girl's behavior, she clearly really liked him. Just don't give up. If something doesn't work out for you, I'm always ready to help you, she supported the boy. Megan was embarrassed and blushed again. This primarily revealed her feelings for the boy. Thank you, he answered the girl with a sweet smile. In turn, Dennis was also not indifferent to the girl. After all, he experienced the same feelings when communicating with her and looking into her beautiful big eyes. He moved on with a bold, confident step. Forward, and only forward. He decided. The boy was confident not only in Fabian's plan, but also in his high level of training. He was sure that he would write the exam without any tickets or hints. And now, like deathly silence, you can only hear the scratching of an ink pen on paper. The bell rang, indicating that the exam was over. I don't think it was very difficult, but I can't pretend that I knew the answers, Dennis thought as he went outside after the exam. How did you do this? Now I feel safe, exclaimed the botanist boy, turning to Dennis. I have a pretty good feeling, Megan said, walking out with the guy. Everyone was in some kind of high spirits, of course having survived the stress of the last exam. Every time you take a test, you say this, and that's why the hooligans won't leave you alone, the nerd whispered quietly, a little embarrassed since he rarely talked to anyone. Dennis, are you ready? Fabian asked him, looking with impudent, self-confident eyes. He just wanted to quickly disgrace the guy for the whole school. And then, calling someone on the phone, he started talking. I would like to report Dennis, a second-year high school student, for stealing tickets for the Intercity Unified exam. I demand that you immediately conduct an investigation, he said on the phone so that others around him could hear his speech, especially Megan. Fabian, you're lying, the girl exclaimed, defending the boy as always. Dennis would never do that. The botanist also intervened to defend him. They were shocked at what this lousy classmate was trying to do. Get out of the way! Move away! Move away! The guys dressed in uniform commanded. They immediately arrived at Fabian's call. This was a military discipline group. You have no witnesses. You are the only one who knows whether you did it or not, said the guy, looking at the boy with impudent, lying eyes. But I will bring you to light, of course, now, the bastard hissed in front of everyone. Yes, I'm the only one who knows this. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, Dennis answered him just as brazenly, holding his hands in his pockets. He had nothing to fear. The main thing was to fight off the surrounding fake liars. Dennis, come with us to Qing High School. We were informed that you stole exam papers. The guys in uniform turned to the student. They immediately took him by the arms, like a criminal. Finally! Now watch yourself get expelled. And you can't do anything about it, Fabian said mockingly. What a fool, thought Dennis. He hasn't proven anything yet. But he's already rejoicing at his victory, which he didn't win. You can't take him away, the girl exclaimed. You need proof, the botanist supported her. This is chaos. His classmates continued to stand up for him, standing up to discipline. Calm down, guys, the boy said, calming down his friends who stood up for him. Don't worry, everything will be fine, the boy told them. After all, he knew that it was all a setup. I also want to report the theft and slander of a classmate. He stole the tickets, Dennis exclaimed, pointing his finger at Fabian, who was suddenly frightened. Now it's his time to attack, since there is no turning back, and we must fight for our honor, which they have just tried to dirty and deceitfully tarnish. Dennis, how dare you blame me? I'm not a piece of shit like you, he yelled, drooling from his mouth with anger. He pointed his finger at the boy and poured out nasty things. He also showed his bad manners, as if he was the boss there, and everyone owed him. In fact, he's just a daddy's boy, snotty and deceitful. Security! Don't listen to him. Fabian is one of our best students. He would never do such a thing. The chief gave the order. This bastard was also involved in such a vile deed, and the fake bribe takers were already interceding and whitewashing the lousy guy. The head of the assessment team, Robert, began his speech. Only such a useless student as Dennis could do something like that, he said. It was unthinkable impudence. Without checking or proving anything yet, issue this, which already says that they are at the same time. If the impartial Mr. Rob himself says this, then it must really be your fault. Come with us, the guys in uniform told him, and led him inside the building. After all, they believed that man too much. In fact, he did not deserve such trust, much less respect. Uncle is the best. Even my cousin couldn't handle Dennis, muttered a pleased Jerry. It was his doing. He smiled brazenly and rubbed his hands with joy. You are still too young to properly negotiate with people, the lying, corrupt man answered him, turning around. The director's son did me a favor. I'm one step closer to a promotion, the bespectacled man thought meanwhile. Everyone was looking for some kind of benefit in this matter. Well, everyone's gathered. Let's finally start this show, said Dennis, turning to the guys in uniform holding him. I have proof! Let me meet with the director! The boy turned to them. Apparently, the guys from Disciplina were not going to loosen their grip. They waited further for the command of the arrogant bribe-taker Robert. How? How did this thing end up here? Fabian couldn't understand. He was quite confused and scared. Does this guy really have something on him? His eyes became clouded from the fear that rolled over him like a ball. Fabian has panic in his eyes. There's definitely something on this map. I shouldn't let him meet with the school principal, thought the deceitful uncle sent. He was also seriously scared, since his stigma was like a cannon. Take him away. He is accused of slandering his classmate, the bespectacled man exclaimed, pointing his finger at the guy. He brazenly slandered an innocent boy without evidence. We need to see the school principal, Megan said. No, he can't be taken away from here. The botanist stood up. You don't have the right to take it away just based on someone's words, they continued. Let him prove his guilt first. Stop it immediately, the teacher shouted. If Dennis has evidence, he has every right to meet with the director. If Fabian is innocent, you can arrest him, the woman exclaimed. Teacher, said Dennis. Teacherling. But this, the bespectacled man wanted to be indignant, but immediately stopped. Mr. Robert gave this order, the guy in uniform answered her. He covered himself with the order of that man. Actually, everyone covered themselves with him, even the discipline guys. These are the poorly trained employees who disgraced their uniforms. Teacher Ling, I advise you as a trainee to stay away from this, otherwise you will be fired, he threatened the girl. He clearly exceeded his authority, as well as discipline. Ling, you wanted to become a teacher so you could change and join the system? Wanted to be safe? The teacher thought to herself. She remembered all her dreams and plans for the future, but this did not stop her now, in this situation. No, I'm not going to compromise anymore. I'm not going to be a teacher. He is the kind of child who stands up for defenseless classmates. He's definitely a good kid, the teacher thought. No, I am responsible for my students. If he is guilty of stealing tickets, then I will resign of my own free will, said Miss Ling. You! Exclaimed the man with glasses. He bared his teeth in anger, because something didn't go according to his plan. Forward, let's go to the director's office, she said, and took the boy's arm. She decided to brazenly correct the situation until the boy was taken away. completely accused of what he did not do. Let's pass. Now that Teacher Ling is leaving, we can only follow her, said the guy in uniform, addressing the man with glasses. This is the end, Fabian croaked, seriously frightened. Sweat flowed down his cheeks. He was all red from the upcoming horror. And here in front of us is the director's office. The students entered the room. An important, stern man was sitting at the table. So, what's going on? The director asked sternly, sitting in a chair with a straight back and folding his arms on the table. He looked very serious. You will understand everything when you see this, Dennis answered the director, placing a small flash drive with evidence on his table. Fabian asked his father's subordinate to steal the exam papers and then deliberately left them in my father's establishment in order to frame me. He began to tell the director the whole truth, and so the director inserted the media into the computer. Everyone froze in anticipation. He watched this video. It turns out that your father was the one who took the exam papers. Are you sure you haven't read them yourself? The director asked the boy. It's good that this video was recorded in such a dubious way, otherwise we would not have been able to avoid accusations, thought Fabian. I don't know where you got this video, but is this an attempt to set me up? Fabian immediately exclaimed, pointing his finger at the boy. If we're going to play, let's play big, Dennis answered him, smiling sarcastically. He had a plan B behind him. Take this memory card. You want to see what's on it, right? The guy asked mysteriously, holding another flash drive in his hand. Well, what's on it? Asked the director, holding out his hand for the wearer. Information about how Fabian's family does business, the boy answered. Did you tell Richie to steal the exam papers? How can my son get high scores? Besides, if you can steal the final exam, then you can steal the entrance exam, right? The father shouted at Fabian in the computer video. This is Principal Martin, said the school principal, shocked by what was happening. This is the end? What kind of proof does he have? Thought the bespectacled man. Sweat flowed from under his glasses. The boy opened his eyes to several deceitful people at once. Now, do you want to say anything else? Dennis turned to Fabian. He already felt his victory in this dirty business. You, the guy began. He was already coming at him with his fists. Okay, you don't need to say anything. The boy stopped him. Now the facts are before us. Fabian stole the exam papers and is framing his classmate, Dennis continued. Director, what do you think should be done? The name of Director Martin doesn't scare you, right? The boy continued to ask. You shouldn't provoke me. Since this happened to a student at my school, I won't tolerate it. The director said with sadness, lowering his eyes. Fabian, you're out. You are prohibited from taking exams for 3 years. The man continued his sentence. I will draw up a document this evening, and I am going to put your entire story in the document. The man affirmed his speech. The recording will be documented. This is the end. It's all over. The guy fell on his back point and pressed himself against the wall. You're lucky, Dennis, the botanist said, patting the guy on the shoulder. I knew that Dennis would never do anything like that, Megan added. I was right about this guy, Miss Ling said. These bastards! Principal Martin will not let you go so easily! The bespectacled boy thought, looking at his leaving classmates, led by Dennis. Fabian, it's okay. It's just a 3-year ban. In 3 years, with your grades, you will still be able to go to college, the man said, taking the guy by the shoulders. Of course I can. You shouldn't talk about this. But the boy wanted to continue talking but stopped. He was very angry. You, the bespectacled man began to say, but Fabian left, very angry. Dennis, I'll kill him, the boy exclaimed. His meanness knew no bounds. Now he has become much more dangerous, since revenge has taken root in his evil, dirty heart. He really decided to kill the guy. There is a cafe in front of us. There were lights on, and there was a very warm atmosphere. Let's celebrate Dennis's victory over this unscrupulous Fabian, Megan exclaimed, raising her glass of juice. Hooray! The teacher joined the girl. Hooray! The others exclaimed, and everyone clinked their glasses full of juice together. They rested, ate, and had a nice conversation. They rejoiced at the victory and the successful completion of this bad situation. On the table where my classmates were sitting, someone's phone buzzed. My father is calling me. Be quiet! The girl said, asking her classmates to be silent for a while. It turned out to be Megan's phone. What's new, father? She asked. Do you know what time it is? Why don't you come back? What are you doing there anyway? Do you want this again? Her father asked, raising his voice slightly. I'm coming back. I'm hanging up, Dad! Megan exclaimed, answering her angry father. She immediately stood up abruptly and began to get ready to go home. I'm sorry. My father is waiting for me, so I'll go, the girl said to her classmates and immediately headed towards the exit. Let's go home. Dennis suggested that everyone else should wrap up. After all, we already had a good rest. They had been sitting in the cafe for quite a long time. Yes, the boy thought to himself. He thought about his friend, a girl from his classmate. Something confused him that she left so abruptly, as if she was scared of something or someone. Megan seems afraid of her father. What is her family like? I don't think I've ever heard her talk about this. Such thoughts came to the boy because he was smart enough to guess that the girl was behaving somehow strangely, and so he decided to get on his bike and ride towards the girl's house. I'd like to know more about Megan. In the end, she helped me a lot, he thought along the way, giving it a twist. A car suddenly turned towards him. His headlights blinded the boy. He almost fell off his bike. He stopped immediately. Who is this? Dennis asked, shielding himself from the bright headlights with his hand in order to see something again. Dennis, I was waiting for you, said Fabian. It was he who was driving this car. The boy was in great danger. He felt this because premonitions had never deceived him. I'll kill you, the guy exclaimed, and immediately pressed the gas pedal. He ran as fast as he could, eager to kill the boy as quickly as possible. His anger knew no bounds. He simply hated Dennis. SBI 20, hurry up, give me an exchange. Anything, spend all your points, the boy shouted. Streams of sweat ran down his face. After all, a little more and he will end up under the wheels of a car. No problem, master, the siren bug answered. And the system began its work. Bright lightning stretched from the sky towards the guy. The bug rose all the way to the heavens. The entire dark sky became light, bright, shrouded in multicolored lightning. It was as if threads of current pierced the sky. These lightnings touched the boy across the entire sky. He stood in front of the car, covered in bright rays of lightning, mixed with the bright glare of the headlights aimed at him. Die! Fabian exclaimed, pressing his foot even harder on the gas pedal. His eyes shone with hatred, revenge, retribution. And then Dennis, completely pierced by lightning, as if by an electric current, remained in place alive and unharmed. He was unbroken. He stood in front of the car, stopping it with some incredible force. How? How is this possible? Fabian exclaimed. He was shocked by what was happening. The boy simply stopped a car, moving at full speed by some miraculous force. You want to kill me? I won't let you, the boy answered him. He clenched his strong fist. The guy's hair stood on end. He was determined because this vile classmate was encroaching on his life. He punched the car's windshield, breaking through it. The force of the impact was very powerful. Pieces of glass scattered throughout the interior of the car. The boy grabbed Fabian by the chest with the same hand and with a sharp movement pulled him out of the car. He threw him onto the asphalt with all his might. The bastard fell on his back and began to scream wildly. Scarlet streams of blood flowed from his nose and mouth. SBI 0! Let him be an idiot and live like this all his life. He turned to the system, resting his foot on the hood of the car. You owe me. The alarm bug answered the boy, and immediately rising above the lying guy, she illuminated him with a bright blue light, piercing his entire head, as if right through him. The system penetrated his brain, destroying it, spoiling the mind of the vile killer guy. And so Dennis took his bike and walked straight, leaving the evil, vindictive classmate who wanted to kill him, lying on the cold, dirty asphalt. My supernatural ability is quite strong, the boy said, smiling contentedly. Master, don't exaggerate, the signaling bug answered him. This is how his system always landed during Euphoria. The date for announcing the results of the final exam has arrived. We see a huge school building. Many students are walking around her yard. I failed the exam because you didn't let me cheat. Jerry turned to his classmate, the botanist. He roughly grabbed him by the shoulder with one hand. Megan stood on the sidelines, wondering how to help the poor innocent guy. So this year you will do your summer homework for me. He continued to attack the poor boy, without ceasing to scream. He waved his arms as if trying to prove something, perhaps his worthless greatness. You, the botanist began to say, clenching his teeth. But he was weaker than the offender, and completely non-conflict, so he did not continue. It's not his fault that you didn't pass the exam. You're just trying to intimidate him, the girl exclaimed, rushing to the botanist's defense. After all, he was their friend, hers and Dennis's. Today I'm just being intimidating. What's wrong? He said to his classmate a little softer. He left the boy alone. You started talking to Megan. She was outraged by this behavior of the vile guy. Megan, it's okay. It's just a little summer homework, the botanist reassured the girl, while one of Jerry's friends held his head in a friendly manner. This is my boy, said the mean classmate, patting him on the head. No, you have to do your homework yourself, the boy with glasses thought to himself. Which of you bastards wants to interfere again? Jerry shouted, clenching his skinny fist. He contorted his impudent, vile face. And he turned back. He wanted to see who interfered with him again. Dennis? He asked, turning around. And he clenched his fist even tighter. His nasty friends turned around too. They were ready to stand up for lousy Jerry. Who will do your summer homework? Dennis asked his classmate quite calmly, coming closer and closer, as if pinning him to the wall. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself, Jerry answered him. He became calm like a lamb. As always, he looked very frightened at the sight of the boy. Okay, and if I ever see you mocking someone again, I will break your legs. He continued to calmly but confidently explain to the insolent man. Yes, I understand. He answered Dennis, and together with his friends immediately ran out of the classroom and into the street. Only the heels sparkled. Of course, they didn't want to be beaten by a strong guy again. Thank you, the botanist thanked the boy from the bottom of his heart. Megan, who also stood up for Dennis, smiled contentedly. You graduate next year, you must be strong. You cannot rely on others, Dennis explained, taking the guy by the shoulder. I understand, the botanist answered him. Just know we'll go together tonight, the boy said, patting him on the head in a friendly manner. He laughed sweetly, supporting the guy. By the way, did you receive your report card? How much did I gain? Dennis asked the girl interestedly. Here's the report card. This time you're a little better than Dennis, the girl answered him, handing him the document. The girl smiled contentedly, showing her joy for her friend. Second in class, the boy concluded. He looked at his report card, and I was very pleased with the results, even more than. It looks like Fabian lost quite thoroughly, the boy thought, smiling contentedly. After all, he honestly won this argument. Fabian realized what was coming towards him. The discipline found test papers and evidence of his father's bribery in his house, and Fabian went crazy. The botanist told Dennis about their classmate, and his mother came to beg for him to be expelled from school. The boy continued to tell, adjusting his glasses. I don't think anyone can withstand such a blow, Megan thought to herself meanwhile. Those who fight for power end badly. Even if he weren't crazy, he would have lost, Dennis expressed his point of view. What do you do in the summer? The girl asked, coming closer to Dennis. I signed up for training. I want to study hard until the end of the year in order to enter a good university, he told Megan about his future plans. I want to earn a name for myself and give my father a better life, the boy thought, with a smile on his face. After all, he had positive, bright thoughts that looked toward the future. I also went to paid classes. Let's do this together, suggested a classmate.
And then a little time passed. In front of us was a huge, bright university building. It's a clear day. The sun is shining in full.
The first day of the course, I hope this will help me a little to accumulate more ultra energy levels, the boy thought as he approached the university. Hello, students. I am your teacher for the duration of summer studies. The teacher met the students. This is no different from school, the boy thought while sitting at his desk. He leaned one hand on his head. He was somehow bored. Some guy who was sitting next to him at the same desk handed him some kind of folded paper. This is for you, He turned to Dennis. What? The boy asked him. He couldn't understand what was happening because no one here knew him yet. This is my first day here, and I still haven't met anyone I know. Is this a joke? The boy continued to think as he unfolded the letter. Dennis, I like you. It was written in this note, crumpled 10 times. This is news. This is still what he needed. The boy was very surprised. He turned red with embarrassment. Drops of salty sweat began to run down his face. He glanced to the side. Some girl, a classmate sitting at the next desk, beckoned his fingers, winking slightly. Who is this? I wasn't impressed at all. Is there a Cinderella in this classroom? Thought the boy. He didn't like it at all. After all, in his head, there was another girl, much nicer and better. I love to study. Study loves me. The rest are all monsters, the boy said to himself while reading the book. He didn't want to be distracted from his studies at all. Master, I think you should confront this girl. The beetle alerter addressed him. I'm in love with someone. I don't like to be in two positions at the same time, Dennis answered the system. Don't worry about it. I mean, this girl is not simple. Check her meanings. The bug explained to him. The guy immediately thought about it after listening to the system. He glanced at her, reading the data. Intelligence 7, physical strength 9, spirit 5, luck 3, abilities 2, cat level 2. The boy read it, scanning the system. Another ability is the cat. Interesting, Dennis thought to himself. So it was a girl medium, and her abilities are slightly different from his. It's all for today. You must come back and study well. The teacher gave instructions at the end of the lessons. The cat girl was quietly collecting her briefcase. She did not stop watching Dennis, sneaking glances at him. Have you seen the latest episode of King of Thieves? Super nice to watch, one student said to another. Not yet. Where were we? Answered the second. Can we talk? Dennis asked his classmate. He waited for the girl to leave the class. Of course I'm waiting for you, the girl answered him. She stuck to him like a leech. Poor Dennis didn't know how to get rid of her, and the two of them walked straight down the corridor. Meanwhile, Megan stood somewhere behind watching them. Dennis, who is this girl? Megan wondered. She had frightened, sad eyes in which tears shone. We see a green, beautiful town with a clear blue lake. Alleys, park, rays of hot sun. What do you want? Dennis asked her, going out into the street. What kind of person are you? You won't even ask my name. The girl answered him. I fell in love with you at first sight, she admitted to him, holding his hand. What a twist. There is no need for this. Since we are both mediums, there is no need to beat around the bush, right? The boy answered her, sharply withdrawing his hand. He didn't need her love. What a straightforward guy. I'll tell you straight, she said, and lowered her gaze. My name is Mary. I am a second-level medium, and I would like you to join my organization, she continued the conversation. It's useless! The boy cut her off again roughly, and he hurried away from her as quickly as possible. What a slow-witted girl, Dennis thought. I won't leave until you promise me, a classmate medium said, blocking his path. There was no limit to her reach. How many countries would I be in if I accepted any invitation like yours? Go away. It's useless, he answered her directly. His sneaker on his foot glowed with a blue transparent light. I'm leaving, he answered her, turning around again, and he has already taken a couple of steps forward. I once saved your life. Are you so ungrateful? Mary said, turning to the boy. When did you save me? The boy turned around and asked her. Dennis didn't remember such a rescue. I'll prove it to you, the girl answered and spun around in bright colors, multicolored rays of light. Now do you believe? She asked, already being a cat. She turned into the very cat that saved him at the right moment. So it's you. I didn't know that this cat was a medium, but what does this girl need from me? The boy thought again. Dennis, Megan exclaimed, running up to the boy. She found him in a green clearing next to the cat. She was very worried because she was also in love with the boy, just as he was with her. They just didn't confess to each other, but behaved like friends. Where is that girl? She asked the boy, thinking and blushing slightly. She was very jealous of Dennis, as her feelings were very strong. Meow, don't tell her, the cat asked the medium, pushing her leg with her paws. What a girl. It's just the cat and me, he answered, smiling. What makes you think that? He continued to brazenly deceive. What about the pile of clothes? Megan got angry. After all, she didn't know that the medium was turning into a cat.